Pohlik-lah, Nitamer. I'm glad you're all here. I first want to thank the indigenous peoples of this region and the spirits of this land for allowing me to be here and to be with you tonight and to offer some words. My name is Chris Peters. I'm happy to be back here at UC Davis as a graduate, as Inez mentioned, many years ago. Let's just say maybe even before Gorman Museum was started, but a long time ago. I'm honored to speak at this symposium, Indigenous Peoples and the Doctrine of Discovery, truly an epic journey in exploitation and misery. Let me first thank the Native American Studies staff and students for bringing us all together, and the many co-sponsors that made this event possible. I'm Pohlik-lah, or Yurok, and I'm Karuk Indian. My people have lived in what is now northwestern California since the beginning of time. We are earth healing and we are earth renewing people. We are put here on earth for no other reason other than to heal and renew the earth. That is our purpose. That is our purpose and that is our function in life. Like many other tribal nations, we practice an earth-based spirituality, a spiritual belief system that seeks to foster peace and harmony by overcoming conflict and oppositional energy. And in doing this, we maintain balance and we maintain order within ourselves and within the universe. I'm also, as indicated earlier, the president and CEO of the 7th Generation Fund, an indigenous native public foundation, the oldest indigenous Native American public foundation in the United States. We raise our budget annually from larger foundations and individual donors, and we have never received any support from state and federal agencies. They're very fundamental policies that define who we are as an organization. And we will continue that position into the future. As an Indigenous Peoples Foundation, we have been assisting indigenous nations throughout the hemisphere, Central and South America, to rebuild sustainable, healthy, and culturally vibrant communities for over 35 years now. And at the end of this month, I will begin my 25th year with 7th Generation Fund. 7th Generation is dedicated to the preservation of traditional sovereignty and the cultural and philosophical uniqueness of Native peoples and Native nations. We are founded upon the philosophical precept that is widely held by many tribal peoples throughout the Americas, that in each of our deliberation we consider the impact on 7 generations to come. This precept teaches us how to be good ancestors and is important for our conversation this evening. Tonight I will be talking about the Doctrine of Discovery, or what the late Dr. Jack Forbes, a long-standing professor here at UC Davis and a personal mentor of mine, referred to as the enterprise of Christian discovery. And Jack was speaking these terms at this university in the late 60s and early 70s. Doctrine of Discovery is nothing new here. The enterprise of Christian discovery. In this short conversation, we'll examine the fundamental precepts housed in earth-based paradigms of indigenous peoples, and the important role that these precepts and philosophies has played in cultivating a sustainable world for everybody. Because these fundamental precepts that are most significantly threatened by the continuing legacy of the enterprise of Christian discovery, they will be examined here tonight. They are threatened. The doctrine of discovery, the enterprise of Christian discovery, does not only apply to indigenous peoples in the United States, but indigenous peoples of the world. South and Central America, Australia, Africa, New Zealand, every place that colonization happened. However, before I start, I'd like to raise up April 18th, 2013, just a few days ago, as being a very significant day. It was Ling plus 25. Ling plus 25. 25 years after Ling versus Northwest Indian Cemetery Protection, an epic battle that was fought by my people, the Pohlik-lah and the Karuk people of Northern California. Otherwise known as the Go Road case, Ling was litigated to the Supreme Court. This court decision is not only important because it is the subject of a chapter in Walter's book, In the Court of the Conquest, in the Court of our Conquerors, but it is also germane for our conversation this evening. The decision in Ling, the very first opinion written by a woman in the history of the Supreme Court, represents the personification of the doctrine of discovery in contemporary America. And it stands in testimony that this legacy of exploitation and misery perpetuated by the papal dictates continue today. Ling involved the construction of a logging road and implementation of a timber harvesting plan that would destroy the sacred places in the Siskiyou Mountains used by my people for medicine making, the places where we receive spiritual power for earth healing and earth renewal ceremonies. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a rather Pontius Pilate fashion, washed its hands of any responsibility for continuing earth-based spirituality and ecologically centered paradigm of indigenous peoples. Ling was a precedent-setting case in that it affirmed that indigenous peoples in the United States, and as happens in the United States, so happens in other parts of the world, that indigenous peoples never did have religious freedom. The U.S. Constitution, they say, does not have provisions that would uphold our claim. As a result, sacred places, spiritual places, that are central to our spiritual understanding throughout the United States now can be destroyed with impunity, leaving spiritual leaders with no litigative recourse within the American justice system. The doors to the courthouse are closed to Native peoples and our First Amendment claims. San Francisco Peaks, Medicine Lake, Mount Taylor, and at least 30 other sacred places today, as we speak, are now in harm's way. And they will be destroyed by some sorts of mining or industrial development, or by the will of resource managers who are put in charge of protecting our sacred places. The impact of Ling has been multi-tribal, and it will be multi-generational. For this ecologically centered paradigm, contained within this earth-based spiritual belief systems, Ling decision was nothing short of a sentence to forever lasting death. It was the final phase of cultural genocide that was so clearly set forth in the dictates of the papal bulls and the edicts of the Pope when granting Christian nations the authority to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, put them into perpetual slavery, and take all of their possessions and property. Much of this mentality was brought forth in the historic Supreme Court decision, Johnson versus McIntosh, and I'll leave that subject to Walter to go into a little more detail, but certainly an important decision representing the foundation of federal Indian law and policy. Today, neither the executive nor legislative branch of the United States government has offered statutory protection or a basic cause of action that would allow the first Americans to exercise legal recourse within the courts of our conqueror for First Amendment religious freedom protections. Let's talk a little bit about earth-based spirituality and worldview of indigenous peoples, because these precepts housed within such paradigms have been most significantly threatened or impacted by the Doctrine of Discovery. The issue that we face with the Doctrine of Discovery is the collision of two different philosophies, two different precepts, two different worldviews, the takers and the givers. And we'll examine a little bit about earth-based spirituality, that which is at stake most significantly here. As indicated earlier, it is our understanding that our primary responsibility in life is to heal and to renew the earth. That's a human responsibility. That's not only our responsibility as indigenous people, but it's a man responsibility. It's a humankind responsibility, that everybody has that responsibility and must exercise it. We are put here for no other purpose, to take care of the earth. And throughout our history as indigenous peoples, we've done a pretty damn good job of it. We have been quite effective in sustaining the natural systems and renewing the earth. For at least the past 40,000 years, indigenous peoples of the Americas, we have abided by a harmony-based spiritual tradition and customs and lived peaceful and sustainable life within each of our homelands. The legends of indigenous peoples and our earth-based spiritual understandings describe a cosmology where there is a creative force. A poem, we refer to this as Pohlik-lah. Pohlik-lah, the energy that is all around us. In more scientific physicist terms, they might refer to it as universal plane. And this energy, or this spirit, is a connecting force that binds us together as relations. All our relations, as the Lakota people reference. Everything, animals, deer, bear, birds, humans, butterfly and the fish, plants, the trees, the flowers, the bush and the carrots, the rocks and every element on earth and earth herself are related and perhaps made from this energy, Pohlik-lah. Recently, subatomic and quantum physicists that are studying string theory and particle theory, they're finding that tiny particles that are building blocks for all of matter. Everything in the world, they're finding connectivity. And they're beginning to understand how we are all related. We know these legends are true, that we are all related. In fact, last year, in July of 2012, at one of those very huge accelerators in Sweden, these physicists discovered a microscopic particle, the Higgs boson particle. This particle creates matter from nothing. Creates matter from nothing at all. This immediately was duped the God particle. The God particle. But it is spirit. It is spirit. It's a major find. This connectivity or spiritual relationship does not only include everything on Earth, but perhaps everything in all of the 500 billion galaxies, and perhaps even more that we might not be able to imagine that's out there. There is connectivity, there is relationship, and indigenous peoples understood that fundamental precept since we were put here. This earth-based spirituality. This wisdom and understanding of earth-based spirituality defines our relationship to the world and all forms of life. It embraces natural systems, it embraces natural law, and sets forth principles of how human beings must live on the earth. It teaches respect, reverence, process of reciprocity, or reconciliation that sustains rather than drains the natural systems and elements of the earth. The legends also instruct us not to violate natural law. Our ceremonies are created to keep natural systems in balance and order, and if they are not in order, human beings will suffer the consequences. This infringement on natural order will come back on us. That's a precept held within many peoples of the world. It will come back on us. It will visit our children. It will visit our grandkids. It will visit our great-grandkids. It is truly inescapable. If we violate natural systems and natural law, we will suffer the consequences. And we know, as Indigenous peoples, we know this to be true. Our ceremonies and rituals affirm our spiritual understandings and provide a means by which human beings can take care of the earth. And as Walter and I have a common friend that had passed, Vine Deloria used to say, it is a process of administering to the earth. Administering to the earth. My people refer to this ritual as medicine making or high mountain medicine. We understand that certain places have spiritual intelligence. Since the beginning of time, my people have used the sacred high country in the Siskiyou Mountain range for medicine making, vision quest. This is the same area that is subject to the Ling decision some 25 years ago. At these sacred places we fast, we dance, we jump, we sing, and with intense prayer and deep meditation and prolonged and continuously driven thought, sometimes for many days, spiritual leaders administer to the earth. And through this process we establish or we reestablish connectivity to the Spirit. We reestablish connectivity to Ilah Likwasha, and we understand, we know how we are all related. We also, at these places, have revelation. As Inez mentioned, we have revelation. We achieve revelation and acquire the wisdom and knowledge that affirms our earth-based spiritual ideologies. We also receive spiritual power needed to perform earth healing and earth renewal ceremonies, the Srat Chapiaway, the Willa Willa Ga ceremony at home. And we do that. We establish connectivity, and through these ceremonies we continue to know that we are all related. These revelations also inform the ethical and moral foundation of our people and set forth a system of values of our ecologically centered paradigms. Please understand that my people and many other tribal nations throughout the Americas, we are not monotheistic. We do not have only one God. We have not evolved from Abrahamic theologies. Native paradigms are significantly different. There is not one single God for us. In fact, among my people, perhaps other indigenous peoples as well, throughout the Americas, the Christian God is referred to as an illegal alien. Came to us with the first of the boat people. For us, there are many spirits. Fire has a spirit. Water has a spirit. The wind has a spirit. There are spirits all around us, and these spirits are alive. These spirits are well, and they exist today. The fact that we don't give them attention, the fact that we don't perceive them as being real anymore, doesn't deny their existence. They are here and they are with us. But then change happened. Change happened. Now, folks here at this university understands what a narrative is. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an ending. And up to this point in the cycle of time, Native people's narrative is laced with concepts of forever lasting life. If we human beings honored natural law and continued our ceremonies and continued our primary responsibilities of healing and renewing the earth, there would be forever lasting life. Life would continue on and on and on. Our narrative has no ending. There is no final conflict. There is no Armageddon. That we will live, if we do our ceremonies and live sustainably on earth, we will live forever and ever and ever. Our narrative. It is comprised of systems and cycles of renewal and rebirth. And then things radically changed. And so too would our world and its many manifestations. Hundreds and thousands of people came with conquest and domination mentalities. They came looking for gold, they came looking for land, they came looking for resources, and they came looking for slaves. And now, in this day and age, they come to our communities looking for water. The world of human beings, the children of the earth, have been turned upside down by the children of God. As our good friend John Trudell says, the children of God are devouring the children of earth. Our fundamental precepts, our ecologically sustainable and earth-based paradigm, and the spiritual understandings our spiritual understandings were violently destroyed and constantly undermining ever since the infamous and misguided sailor reached the shores of our lands and began to colonize our people. The Doctrine of Discovery. The Doctrine of Discovery was institutionalized in international law, or law of that time called the law of Christendom, and is directly responsible for centuries of ethnocide and genocide, all in the name of Christian God. The legacy of religious crusades against pagans and infantiles of the world offered indigenous peoples here in the Americas, the children of the earth, either death or conversion. But mostly they offered death. Mostly they offered death, either through a conscious or a cognizant intent or through outright stupidity. Such crusades not only exterminated millions and millions and millions of indigenous peoples, but they also brought our earth-based paradigm, our ecological consciousness, to point of near extinction. How did this all start? How did we get to where we are today? Over the past 10,000 years, there has emerged somewhere in Europe what has come to be known as civilization. And with this, many strange things happened, and I won't go into all of the strangeness of civilization, but let me touch upon one important one. After some 40,000 years of a mystic and spiritual understanding that every human population of the world knew to be true, we all ran naked in the woods. We're no different. We're animals of the earth. No matter what color we are, no matter where we came from. We all understood this to be true. and an understanding that the earth, our mother, was alive and had a spirit and had a soul. This belief system was being rapidly replaced with a more constructed and more secular religious dictate or dogma. These religions, and we'll call them Abrahamic religions because there are several of them that emerged at the same times, tended to focus on a creator God, a creator God. And unfortunately, we hear that with indigenous nations now referring to this concept of a creator God. A God that was single-handedly responsible for magically bringing forth all of creation. Now we can think that if there were no food here, all we had to do is think, and wow, food would be here. If there's no chairs here, all we had to think, and chairs would be here. The same concept of creation, that somehow, all of a sudden, this creator God magically thought that all of the species of the world would be here, and wham, they're here. Like magic. Somehow, now this civilized human had a special relationship with this God. They developed a special relationship with this God. And from this there emerged a concept of dualism. That the God or creator was separate from all of creation. Somewhere out there in space created everything here as a separateness. This notion strayed significantly from the earth-based spiritual understanding of connectivity and relationship that had survived since the awakening of conscious man, who has continuously adhered, at that time, who had continuously adhered to an earth-based spiritual or harmony-based spiritual belief system. They understood connectivity. Before civilization, all peoples of the world understood connectivity and understood how to access, through their spiritual understanding, how to access this knowledge of creativity, this intelligence that they have, how to access it and understand connectivity and how everything is related. The relationship with all living things. They understood that and sought to maintain balance and order within ourselves and within the universe. They understood how to exercise their primary responsibility of earth healing and earth renewing before this change happened. As time passed, this civilized and now this civilized Christian human began to realize their self-awareness and intelligence somehow distinguished themselves from other species. They were no longer related. Most notably, his ability to problem solve, identifying cause and effect, the separation of mind and matter. This created a fundamental shift in Eurocentric or Christian paradigm, particularly in relationship to the earth. In fact, the notion of an organic, living, spiritual universe, once held by all creatures of the world, all peoples of the world, was being rapidly replaced with a notion of a world without a soul, that humans could exercise at will whatever they wanted to destroy the earth. Mother Earth was no longer alive. The civilized man had severed their roots and severed their relationship with the spirit of the earth and all of nature. Then, in due time, and with such dictates as the doctrine of Christian discovery, the civilized human was able to outcompete all competitors for available resources and eventually extend the notion of civilization to almost every corner of the planet. In the far reaches of Earth time, some 4.5 billion years, civilized Christian humans have only been on earth for a very short period of time. And during the duration of human time, the civilized human or civilization has only been here a blink of the eye, a very short period of time, 10,000 years out of 6 million years that humans have walked the earth, a very short period of time. But during this time, we've managed to mess things up pretty good. We've managed to mess things up pretty good. We have overshot many of the fragile ecosystems and caused them to become out of balance. The earth is out of balance. We have contaminated the sacred, and we have violated natural law and natural systems and brought the earth, our common mother, to a brink of destruction. If left to his own desires, the civilized man will continue to consume and destroy all of that is good and all that is sacred in the world. We have violated natural systems, natural law, and now all humans will suffer the consequences of this infringement to natural order. People, the ice is melting. The ice is melting. As we enter this new time in history, the galactic dawn, or Baktun, as our brother Mayans refer to it, the third millennium presents humankind and perhaps the Earth Spirit herself with a very serious dilemma. Will we continue the legacy of the Doctrine of Discovery? Will the development strategies of the civilized man continue to sustain us? Or will the competition for power and resources lead us to escalating conflicts, more depletion of natural systems, and our eventual extinction? What has been transpiring here on Earth is simply unsustainable. People say, if we are to live how we live today, it will take at least 4 planets the size of the Earth to sustain this lifestyle. And folks, we haven't got 4 planets. We just have one. Now, this is one hell of a dilemma. Recently, the financial house of cards, the global financial institutions, without accountability to the peoples of the world, capped an unsustainable cycle of greed and corruption and left the world near financial collapse and bankruptcy. Our homes, our pension plans, our retirement, our investments were gambled away. The earnings of ordinary people, you and I, our tax money, were hijacked to bail out these perpetrators, these predators. Some have received bonuses. None were prosecuted. None were jailed. None were held accountable in any fashion. People throughout the United States are losing faith in of those in power. We are realizing that wealth and financial power has shifted into the hands of a very tiny minority of people. Perhaps less than 1% of the population now owns about 85 to 90% of the world's wealth. The conquest and domination mentality of this elite group of civilized humans and their science of exploitation and misery is dedicated only to the mantra of take no prisoners and give nothing back. Has nothing changed since the Doctrine of Discovery? This mentality of disproportionate concentration of wealth and power has produced significant reactions. Arab Spring in the Middle East has sent a call for liberation and justice throughout the world. Occupy Wall Street movement has mobilized a new consciousness about this financial disparity. A half a billion hits on Google within 1 month after the inception is testimony to how powerful this movement, this Occupy Wall Street movement is. Listen to what the unions are telling us. Worker rights don't exist here in America. Worker rights don't exist anywhere in the world. And of course, Idle No More. Idle No More has become the biggest Native movement since Wounded Knee. People are looking for change. People are looking for social transformation like we have never experienced in our lifetime and in the history of this country, of civilized man. A social transformation to something that is more sustainable, something that will provide for life forever and ever and ever on this planet. And if we're to achieve this, we collectively, we need to begin to dismantle the doctrine of discovery and the Eurocentric paradigm that has perpetuated this far. Thank you very much.